Tell me about that. What did they used to do?
Oh God, we used to have a big traveler. In fact, when I was 16, I bought a traveler. Great big long one. It was painted red and green. We used to put about 8 on it. And that way, Cobble Hill, you could go up there and come down. Now it's all blacktop. It was dirt, see? We used to go up there and come down. You didn't see many cars and nothing. Well, they didn't drive their cars much in the wintertime. They used their horses again. They go to slave. They used to come through the covered bridges with their little bells on, ringing and everything. Yeah, you didn't see too many cars in those days. My father used to put his up. He went by horse.
What's your earliest memory from Swanzey?
Earliest? Well, I sure don't remember when I was born. I was born in 1921. Oh God, I can remember walking around. We lived in what they call the beehive. That's what do they call it now?
The beehive.
No, we call it the beehive. Stratton's Arm, ain't it?
Yeah, they still refer to it.
That was the beehive, and they had 3 or 4 families in it. Each one of them had about 4 kids. My mother ended up with 8 before she got through, but we moved out of there. That was where we used to live, and I remember I started to school from there, 1926.
Tell me about that.
Well, we used to, well, there was a young girl there, that the Heinz's Hall is still there, remember? Well, that was why they had all girls, there was 4 of them. And I used to walk to school with that one, Geraldine. But then, after we got up in the higher grades, we drifted apart. She married a band leader. He had a band. One of her sisters, Nellie, went on to write storybooks. Well, they were smart girls. There was 4 of them. And they went on to write. She wrote books and stuff. Tilly and them. And then their father, he was killed right up in Keene Street. I was up there the day it happened. I see him laying there. I used to go up to my uncle who stayed, my Uncle Charlie, on Belmont Avenue. And we come up through the street right on Winchester Street, come right out from West Swanzey. And he was laying on they had him covered over with a blanket. I don't know if he hit a car head on or what him. I think he did. He had a big German Shepherd with him. The German Shepherd, the father, of course, he died though. But the dog went home. I don't know how he found his way, but they say dogs will. He came home, he was a big German Shepherd. Every time I go in a cemetery, I usually stop at his grave, because I know him all. It's awful sad though, he had to get killed. And they had a house up in Chesterfield called Heinz's. And that's where they went back and forth. They lived, always a big house up there. Oh, it's gone now. They tipped it right over. They bulldozed it. Oh, that was a beautiful house. Upstairs they had 2 bedrooms. And one was painted pink, the other painted blue. The blue one for the boy, pink for the girl. And the Boy Scouts of all things went up there and they wrecked the place. They had those walls all nice and painted, you know, plastered. They went up there and smashed them all apart. They had an old organ about that big. They threw it out the window. But I did find out with a guy I went up with one day. He said they found that organ outside and they took it home, so they got it. So that's something to keep, really. But they went up there and pushed the house right over. So it looked like nothing now. Beautiful country. But that's part of Chesterfield, but it was, for them, it was part of Swanzey because they lived up there half the time. The other half, they lived over behind his hall. And that's why they had dances and stuff, see? They had dances in that hall. Oh, I remember them. They played basketball in it. I can remember Steve Gamallo. You ever heard of him? He run the store. Wow, they used to play basketball in there. But they played more football than basketball. They were rough. Oh, God, they grab each other, bump each other, knock them over. They were more like football. Swansea never did have a real good basketball team. Too damn rough to play football. I don't know what else you want to know unless you...
What do you remember of the hurricane in 1938?
Oh, Jesus, I'll never forget that one, boy. Oh, we didn't know it was coming. And we had 4 days and 4 nights of rain that flooded our whole street. We lived on West Street. The whole brook was the whole meadow was flooded. All the way over from West Street all the way over to where it goes down into by Sheldon's, where he lived down in there. And it flooded, that whole thing was flooded, over 100 acres. And we were out on it. We didn't know the hurricane was coming. And we had a boat, there were 3 of us. One of them was my brother, my younger brother, and the other one was a girl I married. At that time she was 13, but I married her when she became 16. And I was 19. We was out there rowing around way on the other side of the pond when that hurricane came up. And I'm telling you, we had a boat, we had an awful time getting back to the road. And once we got back to the road, I didn't know how we were going to get up the hill because the trees were falling all around us. It was terrible, I'm telling you. The trees were dropping. I don't know why we didn't get killed. God must have been on our side because those trees were dropping all around us. The road was plugged up. Trees were dropping all around us, blocking off the road. I wrote a song on it too. I got a hurricane song. Oh, I can't remember all of it now, but it.
Can you remember some of it?
Yeah, well, let's see, two brothers and the neighbor's daughter were boating on the meadow that day. Big wind was making big waves on the pond. That ain't the way it goes, but that's what I had about the pond. The waves were being blown by that wind, see? And we were out on it. And so then we had to row to shore. I don't know how we got to shore, I'll tell the truth. But then we had to go up this hill and the trees were dropping all around us. I don't know why we didn't get hit on the head. I can't. The only thing I know is God must have been protecting us. Because how those trees all miss us. We were going down, over, and under. See, some of the trees would fall high up. We had to go under them. That ones that went down low, we went over them. That's the way we did. When we went up to the farm, we lived on top of the hill. So we didn't get flooded up there. But we got home. And our mother, of course, didn't know where we was, and we was out in that, we started hollering to find out where they were. They were down cellar. That was the safest place they had. There was all nice big stones in that old house, and the house didn't get blowed over, but the only thing got blowed over was the shed. When we got top of the hill, it was a hen house. Over went the hen house. The floor stayed right there on the ground, but the sides of it and the roof went right over. The chickens went flying everywhere. Under the barn, mostly under the barn to get out of the way. And we got inside, we hollered to our mother, and then we went into the cellar. When the wind would let up, the big trees, we had about 3 big maple in our yard. Oh, great big ones. And the roots would come right out of the ground they'd almost go over. And they was right towards the house. By the barn, there was a great big elm tree, and it was tipped right over too the same way, and went right towards the barn. And my mother said, "You've got to get those cows out of that barn, or they are sure dead." And we had 2 cows and a young stock, and so we went in and we chased them out. But that wind was so strong and the wind was so hard and everything, and all the rain, they went right back in the barn. We had to go back. We had to go back in and lead them out and put them in the barnyard and tie them in there, because they didn't want to stay in there either. Or they didn't like that wind. Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, I even wrote a verse on that in there in my song too, about the cows, how they run right back in the barn. Oh, that was, it was real terrible, but I haven't figured out yet how we get up the hill without getting hit.
Could you try singing a little bit of the song?
Oh God, I wish I'd have brought it with me, because
just a little bit.
Well, a lot of it I can't. When you get out here like this, you get nervous and you can't think about all the... At home I can reel it off like nothing. But you get out here and you get nervous.
Don't be nervous.
I wish I'd have brought a copy with me.
Have you written other songs?
Oh, yes.
Got one you want to sing?
I wrote one on John Kennedy.
Really? Tell me about it.
Let's see if I can think of how it starts. You see, I get out here and I get nerved up. I get home, I can rail it right off.
How about Grandfather's Wall?
Let's see, there was once in the United States a senator so wise and great who said the black must have the rights, the reds can't run our government. Did Castro's men do Mr. John in, or Kennedy's love for the slave? Is the guilty one now in Washington, or lying in his cold, cold grave? Well, I wrote it on John because I loved John. He was a hell of a president. He was a young fella and a smart man. I got to write something about Bob, too, because he tried to find out who killed John, more or less, and they killed him. I think it come right from Washington, D.C. Did Castro's men do Mr. John in, or Kennedy's love for the slave? Is the guilty one now at Washington, or lying in his cold, cold grave? Now, I think the guilty one is in Washington myself. I think it was an inside job. I always did. That's the reason I wrote it that way. I wrote other songs. I wrote a song about the White Mountains, the old man of the mountain.
Yeah? Do you remember that one?
Well, God must have made New Hampshire his own beloved place. For high in the White Mountains, that's why we carved his face. He must have been shy to show his face, yet only from a certain place. He gently frowns as he looks down what man has done to his sacred crown. Now the sins of man, with tears he cried from a lake at the mountainside. Oh, the more he cries, the more tears he cries, the more the mountain shakes, the mountain shakes. Now it's up to man if the mountain stands or come tumbling down in Profile Lake. Of course, it didn't fall in Profile Lake, but it sure came down. And I wrote that when I was going up by it. I wrote it, but it was in here. When I got home, I wrote it down. We was going up through there. We went up to Maine to a trappers meeting, went right by the old man. And he looked so grand. I know it was going to fall because they had him all chained up, wired up, stone for stone. And I know damn well when I wrote that it was going to fall. And it sure did.
What were you going to Maine for?
Went up to a trapper's meeting. I didn't trap, but my buddy did, and he wanted somebody to go with him. See, we went up there and stayed the weekend and everything, and they had a trapper. He used to trap. He still does, in fact. He's still trapping.
Tell me about Grandpa's wall.
I say, stone wall, don't move at all. Yet it runs over hill and dale, leaving an endless trail, but it don't move at all. Grandfather's wall. They walled around their sheep, called it a pen. Walled around their pastures to keep the cows within. They laid them round, they laid them flat, they laid them big and small. That's how they built Grandfather's wall. Now, my grandfather told me about a lot about the wall because he built them. He lived over there. And when he was around 8 or 9 years old, there was a big wooden fence, high one. And somebody had thrown some tomatoes over after they ate them, and the seeds came up. He used to jump over that wall and take care of them so he could have the tomatoes. Well, this day he jumped over and there was a bottle broke, sticking up like this. He landed right on it. They cut his foot right off right here. So he had a peg leg, cut it right off. He didn't have no foot. And he used to wear he had it, it was kind of iron, but he used to put cloth in it to keep it so it wouldn't hurt his foot. And when he come around, you could hear that 1 foot plunk. So us kids, when we was raising Cain, and we heard him coming, you know, he'd come pretty fast with that thunk, 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 you'd hear that 1 foot. So we straightened right up. He was a strong cuss. A lot of guys said he could fight. They said he was an awful fighter. He'd take 3 or 4 of them, flatten them out. They said one day he flattened one guy out, and he was, a couple of days later, he was coming down the road sitting on some hay that they just cut. The guy jumped out of a tree down onto him, tried to knock him out. My grandfather flattened him out again. They said, you ought to see his arm. Christ, it was big as a tree trunk. And I was having a little argument with my younger brother, and my cousin Stoney he was about 9 years older than I was. Well, he come running out because he thought I was fighting with my brother. I wasn't.